Great to have you with us. My name's Donald Taylor. I'm a non-exec director at Filtered. I'm also the chair of the Learning Technologies Conference. We've got a great CLO Coffee Club for you today, number 3 in our series. Going to take an hour to listen to Nina Bressler-Murphy from Novartis talking us through company culture. And then we're going to have also a bit where we get together on our tables in order to have a discussion around culture and the learning culture that you have in your organizations and what you've done about it. My guess is that we're going to be slightly late starting because people are always taking a bit of a moment to come into the room. So Nina, I'm just going to ask you, while people are coming into the room and people are saying hello. So hello, Cindy. Hello, Christina. Hello, Kelly. Oh, the chat is filling up with hellos. It's lovely to see. Or the Q&A boxes anyway. And the chat is filling up as well. Great to have you with us, Anthony. And also we've got a hello from the US, yes, from Cindy. So I hope you've got your coffee to hand. Nina, do you want to quickly introduce yourself? Obviously, you'll be talking in a couple of minutes, but quickly introduce yourself. You're the Global Head of Enterprise Capability at Novartis. What does that mean?
Sometimes I don't know, Don, but hi, everyone, and thank you. I'm dialing in from Prague in the Czech Republic, and I'm part of Novartis, which is based out of Basel, Switzerland, and I sit within the Novartis Learning Institute. I report into our Chief Learning Officer, Simon Brown, and I look after all of the enterprise capabilities, so anything that is a human capability or stretches across the entire enterprise and gives people range and develops them. So that's the cultural aspects as well. Some of that is also looking after how we engage learners. I look after our enterprise catalogs. So I'll share what some of those are. And I have a team that's based out of Dublin, Prague, Hyderabad, and Basel.
Wow.
So it's a really nice, fun global role to be in.
I believe I've met some of the team in Prague, but I can't quite remember when or how, but I'm pretty sure I have.
A lot of us came to London for Learning Tech right before the pandemic in February 2020. So we had a big contingent there. It was really fun.
Thank you for setting the scene for us. We're going to kick off with Nina very shortly. I should also say that after Nina's finished talking, we'll go into our workshop piece where we're going to chat about things on tables. And after that, Nina and Chris Littlewood will be having a chat as well, talking about the way that the work that Filtered has been doing at Novartis with particular focus on company culture. I'm Nick. Chris, do you want to quickly say hello to everybody before we crack on?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm here because I'm working with Nina on a project on enterprise capabilities. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the session.
Fabulous. Thanks so much. Right. I think now's a good time for us to launch into Nina's fabulous and content-rich presentation. Nina, I'm very happy to pass over to you. Let's hear what you've been doing with culture, learning culture at Novartis. Nina.
Thank you, Don. So let me just share my slides. Let me know when they come up.
Yep, they're there.
Great. And just to kick us off, I also have a poll that I'm just going to put into the chat, and I will answer it on slide 2. Oh, I actually didn't want to show it on the stage. There we go. Great. So let's dive right in. I don't know how much you know about Novartis, but in this presentation, I'm going to take you through who we are, why we've built a strong learning culture from the top down and also the bottom up, and how our journey differentiates us from any other company, and also the impact that it has had. And so I asked, how many patients do you think we touch? Well, we are a global medicines company, and we are present in 155 countries, and we touch the lives of over 769 million patients with our medicines. And we also reached another 66 million patients last year through our access programs. We must build a culture that allows us to innovate, to explore possibilities, to cure disease, and also intervene earlier in chronic illnesses and find ways to dramatically improve quality of life for those patients. So it's important to note the scale and complexity at which we operate. We have 110,000 full-time employees, and they speak about 145 different languages. We see one of our key strengths is our diversity, and we're really proud that we have 45% of our leadership population as women. So in 2018, we launched a bold new strategy to transform our business and to build a leading focused medicines company that's powered by advanced therapy platforms and data science under these 5 strategic priorities. Unleashing the power of our people is the one that really I feel underpins all of them. This was driven by a bold aspiration to transform our culture. But we weren't just following a trend. The decision was driven by data and deep analysis. And that showed us that people with a strong sense of purpose are happier, more innovative, and drive better business performance. The culture transformation was a blessing for us as a learning organization because the curiosity umbrella completely transformed the way that we were able to talk about learning. In 2018, we ran a crowdsourcing ideation event where we asked associates, so Novartis employees, how to bring our culture transformation to life. And from 13,000 ideas generated, the top 4 went to a pitch competition. 2 of the top 4 were around learning. 1 was around access to the best learning opportunities, and the second was around time to learn. So another was around killing performance management and taking a performance development approach to learning. We were able to see that there's a huge business imperative for why going big on learning made sense. The world is moving faster, skills are becoming outdated faster, and the speed at which we need to upskill and reskill our people and to enable them to be adaptive in that environment is really gaining speed. So going big on learning just made strategic sense for us. It allowed us to support the culture of curiosity, to provide access to the best learning opportunities, and we believe that that really supports the continuous innovation that we as a company need to bring to the market. As a learning organization, we use design thinking, and drawing on the feedback from our employees, we started to consider how we would actually bring that culture to life. So it started with a month of events in 2019, a celebration of learning and curiosity, and over the years it has evolved. In the pre-pandemic world, this first year, I Am Curious was the name of the campaign, and it comprised over 130 global learning events in 1 month with internal and external keynotes, and with volunteers from across the world hosting actually 265 local events on anything that made them curious. And they cover topics from how to perfect coffee to a deep dive into the brand strategy. So lots of different ideas came to life there. And then during the pandemic, we went digital, and we had planned to scale down, but interest was so high that we actually ended up hosting 215 live learning events in September alone. And that was brought to life by bringing in 56 external thought leaders like Gary Bowles, Lisa Bodell, Deb Helsing. And more importantly, we had 98 Novartis thought leaders and influencers who contributed to that. These moments in time, which were months, were really powerful, but this year we really needed to shift from having just a moment in time to a continuous culture of curiosity. So now learning is positioned as more of a surround sound to everything happening in the organization, and capability building is attached to every topic that we talk about as an organization. So our curiosity campaign now runs all year long. But it's not just about serving people content. It's also about encouraging people to take risks and push themselves into uncharted territory. And a strong voice for leading at that front to build this culture over the past few years has been our executive leadership team, and in particular, our CEO, Vaz. But we have also built a whole ecosystem around the culture. So I want to take you through a few great examples of how that's actually come to life. One thing that I mentioned earlier was that in this Generate Action ideation event, the second place idea was around killing the performance rating and bringing in a more deliberately developmental focus to it. So our board encouraged us to come up with a new performance management approach that was that was initially an experiment with 16,000 of our associates to design our approach, and we called it Evolve. It was based on growing, contributing, and being your best. So it includes a regular rhythm of check-ins, development conversations, and retros or retrospectives, where teams can come together and they learn from their mistakes. They share feedback more openly with each other, and they promote the achievement of their big, bold objectives. So in this way, we're encouraging risk-taking, driving innovation, and we're not just going to settle on SMART goals, but really go for the moon with these big bangs, these big, bold objectives that, you know, could even possibly cure cancer someday. In addition to that, we also needed to build skills around creating psychological safety in order for us to be successful in this curious mindset and innovate. People need to feel safe to take the risks that are ahead of them. And so we look holistically as well at how we can support people's mental, physical, and social well-being, and to create the conditions for people to learn and thrive. Energized for Life is a team focused specifically on creating learning and coaching experiences for managers and for associates so that they can be their best selves. Another part of this ecosystem is what we call choice with responsibility. It's an employee-led and manager-enabled approach, supporting people to have meaningful conversations about when and where they work and how they do it. So we have 43 experiments in progress, so we can continue to learn how to best operate in this new hybrid environment, and our results are extremely encouraging. We are seen as a market leader in this space by Gartner, and we won some awards for it as well. Every one of our 3 cultural pillars, inspired, curious, and unbossed, is supported by feedback loops and developmental opportunities and a number of products and initiatives that bring them to life. But probably the most important component is our leaders. So as well as a bottom-up approach, we also have a top-down approach. So I want to talk a little bit about how this culture of curiosity and this learning culture is something that our leaders live. And I think so far you've seen us mention unboss in a few places, and unboss is the 3rd aspiration in our culture. Well, we've been rolling out a program for a few years that is actually a continuous practice of being unbossed and of being curious that helps our leaders really understand how they see the world. We do that through a lens of growth and human development. So it helps leaders to live our culture by challenging their own perspectives and assumptions and becoming lifelong learners, giving themselves and their teams space to practice in the job and make it safe to experiment. We started with a small cohort of top leaders and have now rolled out unbossed leadership to 10,000 leaders, 5,000 in this year alone, with an aspiration that all 20,000 of our people leaders will have gone through the experience by 2023. And our impact data shows the teams working with leaders who have experienced the unbossed leadership experience are more empowered, feel safer to speak up, and are more engaged, more open to experimentation, and more comfortable with potential failure. Again, the voice of our CEO is so critical here because he's encouraging everyone in the organization to become a lifelong learner, and this is something that he role models himself. He spends a lot of time talking publicly about the sources that he's learning from. He interviews key thought leaders and shares that with the organization and really democratizes learning. He has actually over 200,000 followers on LinkedIn who follow his learning journey. And our Chief Learning Officer, Simon Brown, has actually documented our journey in a book, which has received many accolades. And it tells the story of how to build a learning culture in a diverse and complex company such as Novartis at scale. But it wasn't just about tactics and strategies. We had to also transform ourselves as an organization on the inside. So we created the Novartis Learning Institute to ensure that relevant learning was available across all of our regions. So it was fully democratized. And we have divisional learning heads with the deep expertise of drug development, manufacturing, or more sitting within their divisions. All this came together for the first time last year. So it was an important milestone in our journey. And we transformed our data collection and impact as well, developing our own global data platform so that we can dive deeply into the needs of our learners and evolve the ecosystem of tools, technologies, and support for both the organizations and the individuals' ambitions to learn and grow. So as part of that evolution, this year, we're on a journey to implement a platform called Match, which is comprised of a talent marketplace built on Gloat and a learning experience platform built on Edcast, which will bring all these various experiential learning pieces together. So we do not just extend our culture of curiosity to our employees. This is probably the part of the work that I'm most proud of. We also offer it to their friends and family with free access to various platforms where they can get certified in new skills or get support for their performance and well-being. And we also offer education programs through Sub-Saharan Africa and around the world, really. And in July, Novartis and the US Foundation announced a planned 10-year collaboration with Coursera, the National Medical Association, the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, and 26 historically Black colleges and universities to design programs that address the root causes of systemic disparities in health outcomes and create greater diversity, equity, and inclusion across the research and development ecosystem. So this is our way of leveraging our learning culture to drive change in support of society at large. And I'm really proud of it. And I'm excited to see where it goes. So now very quickly, our last slides on impact, and then happy to dig in deeper if in the Q&A. So I'm just going to breeze through these quickly. So how do we know that we are progressing on our culture transformation? Well, we measure it. And in some areas, we have moved from below industry benchmark to far above. And that's a position that we've maintained for the last year. And at the bottom, you'll see that we also measure ourselves in several external ESG indices. The one that I think I'm most proud of, and sorry, this is slightly dated, but in 2020, we went up from 79 out of 100 points in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index in 2019 to 100 out of 100 in 2020. And this year, we did drop 3 points for human capital to 97 out of 100, but learning remained at 100 out of 100 overall. Using internal and external measures, we're also tracking a clear link between our culture and our innovation and our performance. And we've seen the impact of our learning culture on our business. So from attracting talent to retaining talent, we've seen cost savings while also measurably increasing strategic skills. And I love this first bullet point here, which is all about how we're able to attract more talent based on this culture of curiosity being publicly visible. So over the past 14 months, out of 1.2 million applications, the number one reason that people wanted to join Novartis is for opportunities to learn and develop. So it's been a really powerful story that we can tell back to our business. So that is the end of my story. I'm happy to take some questions and dig in to any of that.
Nina, superb. Thank you so much. Look, you can see by all the emoticons floating over the screen there, there's applause. We saw some party poppers, little heart going past there as well. That's lovely. A very positive response, quite rightly. Great response to a great story. A bunch of questions. We've got 5 minutes. Maybe we can push a little bit further. So we're going to have to be really fast here. Oh gosh, so much here. I'm going to start off with Anastasia asking, what are the strategies that you found most valuable, quite specific, in encouraging people to seek continuous feedback? We know that's a crucial part of a learning culture. And of course, it comes with a whole lot of trust issues around it. How do you encourage people to seek feedback?
I mean, I think we really approach it from the lens of being curious. So that, first you need to establish this intrinsic desire to grow. And then from that desire to grow, you need to have a desire to identify your context. And it's a matter of showing people that the context that they operate in has many perspectives on it. And if you don't seek feedback, then you don't see the perspectives of others. So it's really positioning feedback as a gift to your personal growth, right, and also enabling your performance, because diversity of thought is a really important narrative in our diversity and inclusion ambitions.
Do you also build the culture whereby the people they're getting feedback from, co-workers, managers, are positive about that rather than just rolling their eyes and giving a short, rather abrupt answer?
Yeah, so our feedback culture is really even experienced at the level of leaders. So we have several tools that we use Glint for. One is an engagement survey called Our Voice, which the team does and then reviews together. And all of the questions there are aligned to the cultural priorities. And then there's also a team perspective survey, which is essentially upward feedback to the leader. So in this way, leaders are really role modeling their own feedback journey, their own curiosity journey, by getting upward feedback, also aligned to the cultural aspirations, and making sure that it's part of their routine to discuss those surveys as they come out. And that's part of the Unbossed Leadership Experience journey, is openly sharing with your team your own growth and development and the assumptions that you hold. And
that business of accountability and building into the structure of daily work is so important. Without it, the best aspirations can stumble. Anastasia also asked, and what about the same for development conversations? I'm going to kind of assume that you're taking the same measures around development conversations, because we've got so many questions to get through. Sorry, Anastasia. Andrew asks, who has governance over the learning culture? Now, we could spend a day discussing that. Can you boil it down to 90 seconds?
I don't know that there is governance over any culture. I think a culture is something that the organization has as a whole, and it can be good or bad, right? So it's our job with shared accountability between our learning functions.
Perhaps rather than the culture itself, the various initiatives to support a learning culture. So who is it to make sure that the managers take this business of giving feedback seriously, for example? Whose job is that?
In that case, this whole ecosystem is a collaboration between our learning function, the larger talent solutions function, and a culture leadership team. So there's a lot of minds coming together from both the business and our people and organization function to build out that ecosystem of solutions.
By the way, a lot of plaudits coming through for your talk. Dimitri is saying, thank you so much for sharing your educational revolution with us. And Nicole is saying, it's amazing. There's so much depth in this. I'm going to have to watch this several times to get all the nuance and all the depth on it. So yes, there's a lot in there. Thank you so much. Will you be able to share the slides as well, Nina? Is that possible?
I think we should be able to share them as PDFs.
Fantastic. How about the TEDx Novartis Drive Curiosity? How did that work? And that's from Lelaine, who I think is joining us from Boston, if I remember correctly. How did TEDx Novartis drive curiosity amongst employees?
I mean, TEDx Novartis has been an incredible experience of bringing employees' ideas to life. We just had the second event this year last week, and 33,000 unique associates joined in. And then basically at the beginning of the year, we ask for a lot of submissions. A panel goes through and chooses a number of stories that we want to bring to life that relate to the conversations happening in the organization or challenges that we're facing in the outside world. And then over the course of the year, we have worked towards two events, which are called TEDx Novartis, one in July and one now in June and one now in December, where these associates stand up on stage and do their TED Talk. And it's really incredible. There's a lot of support. And I have to say the talks are really stellarly produced and top quality. But through Curious Together, we also give the opportunity for people to bring other ideas, just not with as much production value behind it. So,
but the production values, when they're high, do encourage people to step up and really think about their content as well as their presentation. It's not just about making it look slick. It really helps raise the whole tone, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we really practice the storytelling, the points we want to bring home. And I think it's really the highlight of the year for me anyhow, is to sit through those TEDx Novartis sessions and hear some of the ideas coming out of the organization.
Absolutely. I'm trying to get through as many questions as possible. Thank you for being so sharp on the answers. Christina asked a question which I kind of had in the back of my mind earlier. If people are encouraged to be curious, how do you ensure their curiosity is not squashed with inappropriate responses? The equivalent of telling a child to shut up and get on with doing stuff rather than looking into the world. How do we make sure it's a positive response?
Yeah, so we definitely can't guarantee that there aren't situations where that happens, but that's why we do so much to build this culture of psychological safety. And that comes back to those engagement surveys and also the team perspectives that I talked about, where we really can see when in a certain area, maybe people are feeling that they are not able to live the cultural aspiration for one reason or another.
And because that's given such prominence across the company, people know that it is something which the company is supporting throughout. It's not a bolt on, it's not a lick of paint. It's regarded as being infrastructure. Diane asks, how did you extrapolate the impact that learning had on attrition? I mean, you had a great impact slide, but Diane's really interested in the attrition number.
Yeah, so we have an exit survey that we ran, and then this is just some initial analysis that our people analytics function did, so we're continuing the study. But we were able to use the data from the exit survey and then correlate it to the impact data, the engagement data from our leaders using team perspectives and our voice, and build a narrative that showed where we had higher engagement in the curious culture, or where the leader promoted a curious culture, the level of attrition was lower. But it's initial data, it was flagged as such, but we're looking forward to tracking that one over the years and seeing if we can really tell a solid story with it.
That's the question everyone always asks. At the end of the day, what are the numbers? Question from David Swaddle. Done a great job of marketing the curiosity message internally. In terms of engagement, what's been key to getting people engaged, and what's preventing the people who haven't been engaged getting engaged? So what are the supporting things? What are the blockers?
Maybe I'll start with the second half of the question. I think the biggest blocker for us continues to be time to learn. Yeah. So people really see it as something that is not part of their job. I think that's where Filtered is really helping us to put learning into the flow of work. And so it's been really shifting that perspective for a lot of our learners, that they're learning all the time, and their learning isn't just about taking time out of their day, but that they can dip into learning opportunities all the time, and that they should identify their learning through a broader lens. And whether it's knowledge management and knowledge sharing or mentoring, or just, even conversations at the water cooler, those are all learning moments. And what I think that's actually where the word curiosity really helps us, is because it allows you to contextualize learning in a much broader frame.
Makes perfect sense. There are questions here also from Alex Dalgleish and Pedro, and a great point from Chris. Chris says, look, I think Novartis is unusual, the profile given to these meta skills around learning, like curiosity and unbossed leadership. And he's absolutely right in my experience. I'm afraid I don't think we have time to go into these other questions. Really, really good though they are. We're just going to come back, Nina. We're just going to have to get you to come back, do another talk at some point in the future, another coffee club, and we'll come back to these questions in the future. Okay. I think you've got everybody thinking, everyone's super impressed by what you've achieved at Novartis, no question about it. Now, the next question is, well, all right, what are we doing in our own organization? So what we'd like to do now is, as is traditional with the CLO Coffee Club, we go out and we have a conversation about this. What's going to happen is, don't do anything for the moment. What's going to happen is, you're going to go and join a group. It's a table, theoretically. You join a table of about 10 people. And in that, we'd like to discuss one very simple question. What steps have you taken to build a learning culture in your organization? Now, we've got something like 15 minutes to have the discussion. So it's not a lot of time. Try and be as concise as you can and pitch in. One person on each table, please. Get ready to share your feedback back to the rest of the group and you're going to have 1 minute to give that feedback. So you're going to speak for something like, I don't know, 50 words would be good, right? 50 words to sum up all of that rich discussion of 15 minutes. I know it's impossible, but, we like to keep things sharp. Right, we're going to go now to your tables, discuss the question, what steps have you taken to build a learning culture in your organization, and get ready to have one person come back with 50 words of feedback. Sam, what do we do next to get everybody able to go to their tables? And we're back in the room, as I used to say in my time as a hypnosis expert on the stage. Great to have you back. I hope that was a good discussion on your tables. If you are your allocated person for your table to give feedback in 2 minutes on what you've been talking about, could you find the button that enables you to put your hand up? And then Sam will give you the right to grab the microphone. That would be great. In the meantime, for everybody, because we've been thinking about this, and I'd love to just get the feedback, could you just type in the chat box what you were talking about in your room, for your table, for you personally, in answer to that question? What steps have you taken to build a learning culture? That way we can get little snippets from everybody into the chat. All right, Sam, do we have, so please do write your own thoughts in the chat. Sam, do we have anybody who's stepping forward? It's Christina Gadd, wearing a festive red jumper in your photograph anyway. Christina, what did you talk about on your table?
Well, we got a little bit off topic, not surprisingly, Don. We talked about all sorts of things, from pushing content, growth mindset, to is it actually a learning culture that we actually want? Because learning culture still feels like it belongs to L&D. Whereas, the curiosity thing I can really buy into, being curious about what the problem actually is. And, if we are curious about what the problem is and we define it correctly, then we'll end up providing a solution that maybe has nothing to do with learning. And if we set off, in this learning culture, and we are looking for opportunities to learn and encourage it and everything, and there's a problem that comes up that's nothing to do with learning, do we still feel responsible that we have to sort of provide some solution? And maybe the curiosity, the growth mindset is something, I don't know what else you'd call it, because I like the idea of a learning culture. And so, but then at the same time, I think, does this belong to L&D as well? And we did get onto the topic of like L&D pushing content then.
Well, that's, I can see in the chat that Martin has raised up the pitfalls of pushing content. And Nina, you mentioned that in your talk, that it's not just about shoving content at people. David's talking about bringing distributed teams into communities of practice. And this is something I've been hearing a lot of. Did a podcast recording with Nigel Payne recently, where he was absolutely saying that organizational learning focuses on, I'm just slightly distracted, Christina, by the flashing lights in the background on your...
It's Christmas. I've got a Christmas tree here as well. So
thank you.
It's Christmas.
Starting first, David says, with learning teams to build the culture, moving away from courses. So I think we've got a common theme here, that focusing on the traditional output of learning and development teams of developing and distributing content doesn't equal building a learning culture. Question from Marek about how we define learning. I think we have to skip that one, even though it's a crucial question, Marek, simply because we could be here all day discussing it. And Andrew, who raised the question to begin with about the governance of learning, say this is why the governance of learning shouldn't be just a learning team issue. It needs to be owned across the organization, which of course is what's happening at Novartis. We're going to come back to Novartis in a second with Chris and Nina talking about what Filtered have been doing there. Chris, anything you want to say, or can I just pull the plug from underneath you and your flashing lights and Christmas tree?
My lovely Christmas decorations.
Delight to see you and your lights. Who else would like to raise their hand, if you can find the button, and talk about what was happening on table 2? We've got 3 minutes left to get the feedback. And Cindy giving a big thumbs up to Christina's representation. Thank you for that. Learning culture needs to be owned by everyone and the company, says Alex. And he might be responsible for defining and supporting behaviors and attributes. Okay, very good. Martin's also giving a thumbs up. Anybody else representing table 2? You don't have to have flashing lights and a Christmas tree. You can just be a regular person like the rest of us are. Monday problem, having too much content. How do you find what the right content is? Marek, it's a great question. Of course, I think the team at Filtered might have some ideas about how to get you to the right content. Anybody wanting to represent table 2 for us and put your hand up? There must be somebody allocated with that responsibility. I would hope so. And if not, very happy to just have the content in the here we are, David Swaddle stepping up. Good man, David.
We didn't actually allocate someone, but things no one else stepped up. So I already put the bit about the distributed teams and building the community to practice. LinkedIn Learning was mentioned by over half the people as being part of the solution, so that was interesting. Curation over creation and using what's already inside an organization first. And then people talked about marketing it and bringing it to people's inboxes to actually get it in front of people. And a bit of thinking like a marketer came out from what people were saying. Another one that came up was getting senior stakeholder sponsorship or business champions for every learning program, because some people had issues with people at the top losing interest and possibly there being too much noise from learning that the people at the top didn't know what to concentrate on anymore. Incentivizing time to learn and using hackathons and learnathons and wider communities of practice outside of the learning team, just learning, joining other people together rather than being the deliverer of the learning.
And I lurked a bit on your table and I saw Anastasia talking about some of this stuff, and she's put a good note in there about incentivizing the time to learn. And if you don't make time for it, I heard her saying, and I think we all know this is true, if it's not allocated, if the time isn't ring fenced for it, it's usually the first thing that gets cut by us personally, because we've got to get the day job done. Miriam is saying one of the things we've been doing is challenging what learning looks like. David, I don't know if you're on the same table or if you want to just share what that means, challenging what learning looks like. Or Miriam, you can put some stuff in chat about it. Because I think it might be, I'm guessing, saying it doesn't mean you have to take a course. You could, for example, yes, there we go. Miriam says it's not just about courses. It's what I call the schoolroom assumption. This idea that performance equals training, performance equals learning equals training equals a course in a place, online or physically. We know that isn't true, but it's a massive, massive mindset to overcome. It is 13:54 with the filtered focus on efficiency and timing. I'm going to say thank you so much, Table 2 and Table 1, for your feedback on what you discussed. I kind of figured we could be here all day on this. So it's such a great discussion. I'm going to hand it over now to Chris and Nina, talking about what a Filtered been doing with Novartis for 5 minutes, looking at that business of supporting a learning culture. Chris, Nina.
Thanks, Don. We'll just try and paint a very quick picture of the project that we're working on and that I'm in particular excited about. So Nina, would you mind just setting out how you see the project from your perspective and what you want to achieve with it?
Yeah, I think in kind of building this culture of curiosity, we made investments into some additional learning catalogs and resources, and we created a lot of our own content. And in our organization, there's just content coming from all sides all the time, whether it's user generated or bought in or coming from a vendor. And the main blocks that we've been seeing is that people don't always know what is the right learning opportunity for them. And they don't know how to integrate it into their work and into the dialogue happening in the team so that they can learn together, and then they don't have time to learn. So we really saw an opportunity to deal with some of those issues altogether by understanding our content better. So really running a lot of content intelligence through a skills lens, but also through a quality lens. And I think Filtered has really been at the leading edge of helping us do that. And then to take what we know from a content intelligence perspective and create the opportunity for more social learning. So learning as teams, leveraging that content so that it's not just about consumption of content, but also the dialogue that comes out of having a learning moment. So whether it's a team reflecting on the TED Talks that we have, and then in our catalog, and then having a TED circle after, or reflecting on some of the internally produced items or something from our external catalogs like Coursera and LinkedIn, it actually eliminates this conversation about time to learn, because it actually becomes a team building and team effectiveness activity. And I talked a little bit about how our technology ecosystem is evolving. And with an LXP implementation, we also really see the opportunity to have more bespoke learning opportunities. And we needed to be able to understand really what's out there on the market. And I think Filtered, you are uniquely positioned to help us develop content intelligence in a neutral way on the market overall.
Thanks, Nina. That's really helpful to hear it expressed in such a powerful way that connects with the learning culture ambitions. I mean, just to sort of describe what we've been doing so far on the project. So we're trying to analyze content libraries, so the content libraries that Novartis has, and some additional or alternative libraries against this space of enterprise capabilities. So far we've worked with Nina's team to define, select skills across that space. So we've picked around 60 skills. And the idea is that we do exactly as Nina says. We use those skills as a lens through which we can evaluate content and work out what's the best fit with something that's a sort of super current, super nuanced set of skills that reflect what's important for Novartis now. And just, I know we're up against it time-wise, but just wanted to make one example of how agile this can be, and how agile it is working with Novartis on something like this. So in a talk earlier, Nina said, skills go out of date quickly these days, and often we think that's like, I don't know, some fancy machine learning that's going to come in and displace all our jobs. But even something as straightforward as collaboration. So in this framework that we've been developing, all collaboration is in the context of a hybrid environment. And it made me think, why would any organization now be defining collaboration skills in a purely face-to-face environment? That's not where we exist anymore. So why not have this skills framework that's appropriate to the context?
Yeah, and that was exactly, I think, how we need to be able to pivot in a moment. I mean, when we did a manual curation in March 2020, when we saw that the pandemic was going global, it was about getting people the content that they needed to be able to work, as we moved 60,000 people to virtual work over the course of a weekend. And so, yeah, things can shift, and it's important to have the intelligence to be able to make those pivots quickly.
Right.
I kind of feel that we are scratching the surface of the great work that you're doing at Novartis, Nina, and of course the work that Filtered's doing with Novartis as well, supporting that shift towards culture and that move away from courses as the only way of learning stuff. It's 13:59. Sam, can you tell people what's happening next and what they should be thinking about? If you could drop our text in as a call to action. Miriam, you and I should catch up on LinkedIn. In fact, if anybody wants to catch up on LinkedIn with anybody, by all means, put your details in the chat, because I think we should all be trying to continue the conversation between coffee clubs with each other. And you know me, I'm Donald H. Taylor everywhere, so you can always link in with me very, very easily. I want to say a big thank you to everybody in the room for your contributions. I want to say a big thank you to Chris for coming on and sharing in very condensed format there at the end, which was very useful, what Filtered have been doing and practically speaking to support this. And of course, Nina Bressler Murphy, Global Head of Enterprise Capability at Novartis, for sharing what you've been doing to make this impossible thing of a learning culture a living, breathing reality in an organization. Nina, thank you so much. Look, loads of plaudits of different types of emoticons moving up over over the screen there. Last thing I'd like to say is it's 2:00 in the UK, 3:00 in Europe. We are going to stop. But if you want to stick around, we're going to stick around with our cups of coffee and so on. I know Nina has to rush off. Thank you so much. But the rest of us we can stick around if you want to, and we can continue the conversation because I feel there's a lot more to say. Nina's waving her hands and saying cheerio. Cheerio, Nina. Great to have you with us.